astrologer. I'm going to be speaking to you today about the first half of November and the new moon that we have in Scorpio on the 13th. So just a couple of pieces of housekeeping before we get there. If you're joining me for 15 minutes at 7 o'clock on a Sunday evening, that's UK time, just please be aware that as of the 29th of October, 0 hours, our hour changed. In the UK, we fall back an hour. So what was originally 7 p.m. now becomes 6 p.m. So in order to calculate your correct time, if you're not in the UK, I've put a time zone converter below, which is a very easy one to use, and to make sure we're all joining at the same time. Of course, if you simply set an intention, if it's 3 o'clock in the morning in Australia, you can simply set the intention that you're joining us energetically anyway. Remember, no Zoom links, no notifications, no reminders. You just put it in your diary, put it on your calendar to join for 15 minutes at 7 p.m. And just imagine we're holding hands across the world and sending love to bring in a better world. And these things really do make a difference. Groups all over the world are doing this kind of thing. Secondly, I've mentioned several times, I'm not on Instagram. So the thousands of people following Pam Greger on Instagram, I've no idea who that is, but it's not me. It's a scammer. So please be aware and don't lose money. So as we enter November, we are still very, very much in the energy of the eclipses. In fact, the energy of the eclipses, the consequences, if you like, of the eclipses are going to continue for about another 6 months, but they're particularly intense around eclipse time. And the lunar eclipse in Taurus on the 28th of October was a very big time of release, of letting go of the old, whatever the old represented for you, that you know you have to move away from, that no longer works, that's heavy, that's empty. It could be a relationship, it could be a job, it could be a residence, whatever, it could be a behavior pattern. We're still very much in that energy. And I said at the beginning of October that October was likely to be a very intense month, and it certainly delivered. I think, if anything, November could be even more intense than October. So let's see where we go with that. But just be aware that in this very, very rapid evolutionary process of breaking down to break through, it has tremendous purpose. It isn't just that we're in the demolition and the destruction for no reason at all. It has tremendous purpose to move us very rapidly to a higher state of being. So just keep that bigger picture in mind as we go through. We're very much in Scorpio season at this time, and one of the benefits of Scorpio is it gives you tremendous focus, willpower, focus, locking in to get the job done. So wherever Scorpio is falling in your chart, it's going to be highlighted in this, well, through a lot of November actually, but very much in this first half particularly. So it gives you that real laser beam focus to achieve whatever you need to achieve at this time, depending on where Scorpio falls in your chart. And as always, if you don't know where these signs fall in your chart, these new moons, these full moons, you can download a free birth chart from my website. Go to the link below, and that takes you from zero to help you understand what these updates are about, and really helps you get so much more out of them. And that's the beginning of your astrological journey, which is never ending, I find, over lifetimes, in fact. So Scorpio is also the season of secrets. So we are likely to see many more secrets coming to light over this period. And I think once the dominoes start to come down, they will all start to come down very rapidly. But we are in this time of endings, new beginnings. And this time of endings and new beginnings, I think, is really going to continue for the next couple of years or so. But, don't forget that it isn't just all endings. We are already creating the new beginnings. The new is already starting, and the more you put your focus on that, the better life is gonna work for you. But the energy is really building even more strongly through November. And one of the reasons for that is that Mars, planet of god of war in myth, is very strong all of this month. It's very strong. It's strong because it's in, for most of the month until the 24th of the month, it's in the sign of Scorpio. This is the sign of its ancient rulership. It's very strong in Scorpio. So being in Scorpio, it gives it more power and more focus. Second reason is it's moving very quickly through November. It's got a kind of real velocity to it. And it's actually pretty much keeping pace with the sun, which is remarkable, particularly from the 11th onwards through till almost the end of the month. Mars is keeping pace with the sun. So we've got a Sun-Mars conjunction, and the sun itself gives force and energy to Mars. So it's a second reason it's so strong. In fact, a third reason, really, it's the Scorpio, it's the pace, and it's the conjunction with the sun. Also, we have a series of very strong aspects to Mars. Now, I'm going to be talking about some of those in the next video, the second half of the month. But even in this half of the month, I'm going to be talking about those. One of the very, very strong ones is from the 11th to the 14th of November. We are going to have a Mars-Uranus opposition, 21 degrees of Scorpio Taurus. I'm going to be talking about that in this video. Super strong signature. But just to back up, to start right at the beginning of November, we're in the eclipse energy. We're in the eclipse energy of endings. And eclipse energy is usually brings permanent changes, actually, not temporary, but permanent. So be aware of that, because where that does happen, there can be sadness, but there can also be a sense of, yep, that needed to go out of my life to create space for something new. Now, one of the first important aspects we have is Saturn moving stationary direct on the 4th, stationary direct. And whenever a planet moves stationary direct, it's like a big liner, a big ship that's kind of slowing down, stopping, and then changing direction. So it adds great amplification, magnification to the symbolism of that planet. So Saturn, as we know, is all about constriction or constraint or rules, regulations, have to obey the authority figures, that kind of thing. And so at this time, because Pisces is so emotionally sensitive, it's one of the most sensitive water signs, this can feel quite introspective or emotionally heavy, but it's actually a very good time to turn inwards, to start to understand what Saturn is telling us about any greater attempts at constraint from external authorities. Saturn very much represents external authorities. It's the original father figure. So we may be introspective about that, or it may be more, more personal constraints that are coming in your life. But what Saturn does is make us strong. It gives us great discipline, and it makes us very strong to be very aware of how we're using our energy moving forwards. I think with barely any earth in my chart, Saturn has given me immense strength in my life because I've used it very thoroughly. So that's one of the upsides of Saturn. Saturn is the teacher. So as I say, there may be more attempts at constraint or rules, regulations at this round, about this time, this first week or so of November, but I have a sense that we will be less compliant, less obedient, partly because the South Node is in Libra, and that's what we're moving away from. That's people pleasing and compliance, but also because Mars, which represents individual sense of rights and freedoms and sovereignty, Mars in Aries is ruling Aries is I am, that very clear sense of individuality, and I have a very strong sense of center and self. That's Mars in its rulership of Aries. So it's now in its old ancient rulership sign of Scorpio, and it still has tremendous strength of knowing who I am, sovereignty, individual rights. We were in this long-term, lasting several months, conjunction of Eris to the North Node. The North Node is our collective soul's path of growth at this particular period, and it takes on the energy of whatever it is conjunct at the time. Eris, as we know, is the sister of Mars, warrior energy as well, and very much the symbolism is around fighting for truth, fighting for freedom, fighting for justice, fighting for a fairer society. So both Mars and sister Eris energy are very strong at this time. So we are probably standing more strongly in our truth and sovereignty than we have ever done, possibly in our lifetimes. And that can be a very good thing, because that the North Node is indicating where we need to go for our soul's growth collectively. On the 4th as well, we have an opposition between Mercury and Uranus. And Mercury is in Scorpio and Uranus is in Taurus. So this can always, Mercury-Uranus aspects can be real downloads and insights. They can bring truths to light, shocks, surprises. This can be really brilliant ideas. Equally, our mind can be speeded up. It's when people have this aspect natally, I always feel that they're kind of plugged into the mind of God. They have access to the higher mind in a much bigger way. But this can also indicate cyber attacks. Mercury is communication. Uranus is linked to the internet, and it's a very discontinuous energy. It comes in kind of quanta. So it can be on-off energy. So there can be cyber attacks, power cuts with Mercury, which is linked to travel and transport. There can be disruptions there. Uranus was the sky god in myth, so it's strongly linked to aviation. So there could be some aviation disruptions. Could be any or all of those things, but we could be feeling pretty sparky, pretty feisty, where our freedoms are in any way threatened at this time. We also have an aspect that runs until about the middle of the month, which is Jupiter semi-square to Neptune. And this is an aspect of idealism. We're yearning for more perfect reality, and many of us are doing that. But it can also at the same time bring up a sense of disillusionment. What I believed in is kind of falling apart right now. Real sense of the veil is dropping. I'm feeling disillusioned. We have quite a nice day briefly on the 6th with Venus that is at 28 of Virgo, trine to Pluto at 28 of Capricorn. And this can bring in, it can be quite intense around relationship issues, that you feel very intense in a positive way around a love relationship. But it can also bring up some jealousy and possessiveness, that kind of thing. It can bring up intensity around financial issues as well. So just see how, and of course, together with Mars in Scorpio, that ups the ante with all of those things as well. That same day, we have Mercury trine to Neptune. And that's a wonderful day for creativity, any creative project or art project, anything which is linked to the imagination, big sky thinking. Lovely, lovely day for that. And then as we move to the 11th, this brings in again some very intense energy, because that's the day when Mars begins to oppose Uranus at 21 of Scorpio Taurus. Now, yes, this is very strong. It's also aspecting, it's conjunct actually, the Uranus of Iran as well. And so and Iran's chart was also aspected by the lunar eclipse, as was Turkey's. So it's pulling in a couple of other countries here. Yes, Israel's and Palestine's very, very much triggered by the lunar eclipse too, solar eclipse and lunar eclipse. So, but I don't want to really add fuel to the fire here. And so I just noticed that in passing in terms of looking at countries. But nevertheless, there's quite a peak of intensity around the 11th to the 14th, I would say. But 11th is the day when Mars starts to oppose Uranus. Now, this is a classic, and particularly because they're in fixed signs, and particularly because Mars is so strong in Scorpio, this is a kind of classic signature for earthquakes of all kinds. So it can be a literal earthquake, it can be political, it can be financial. It's eruptive, hot, explosive, reactive energy. You know, Scorpio can sting in the scorpion's tail, can be around revenge. So it's a kind of ignition point potentially for anything also to do with our freedoms being constrained, because both Uranus is very much linked to freedom, so is Mars, and they are linked together here. So this is a kickback against rules, control. It's primal, it's urgent, it's fast moving. Both planets, Mars and Uranus, are speedy. They want to speed things up. So we could be seeing a kind of pinball reactivity around the middle of this month. And also on the 12th, we've got the moon in Scorpio again, opposing Jupiter in Taurus. So Jupiter will expand any feeling or emotion of intensity that the moon is feeling. And the moon is often in mundane astrology linked to the people. So this can blow up our emotion. Now, this can be around financial issues, Scorpio, Taurus. It can be around safety and security issues, food, Taurus, all of those things. And so with this kind of heightened reactivity and the Mars-Uranus aspect, to just spend more time taking a breath, stepping back, taking a breath, being mindful, not reacting too quickly. Because we need to get to the stage, so many terrible things are happening in the world, and that's completely undeniable. And our big human hearts go out to them. And we instinctively want to take sides. How could XYZ do this to ABC? And the events draw us in that way. But if we do that, we're just feeding again what we absolutely don't want: war, fear, death, poverty, misery. And we need to get to the state where it is the level of consciousness where it is absolutely unimaginable to hurt a human being, whatever their nationality, their religion, their skin color, it doesn't matter. It is unimaginable. I feel very passionate about this, to hurt another human being, or an animal, or a tree, or a bird. I grieve when trees are chopped down. I fought very vigorously to stop some local woodland being chopped down, because I grieve when trees are chopped down. They are also living beings. So we need to get beyond this reactive pinball hamster wheel, so that enough of us across the world have that feeling of that this is unimaginable. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to enter into this situation. And if enough of us say no, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. If enough of us bang the drum of peace. So take a breath, step back, feet on the earth as often as you can, be in nature, listen to the birds, hug a tree, hug a child, hug a friend. Do all those simple things to bring you back to center. Okay, so let us now look at the chart for the full moon. So hope you can see that clearly. As always, I've set this up for the UK. This is where I live. So please ignore the clock face and the houses. We're just going to look at where the planets fall and their aspects to each other. So Sun and Moon always together at new moon. So this is happening on the 13th of November. It's happening at 1:27 a.m. Pacific time and 9:27 a.m. UK time. Sun and Moon are always together at a new moon at 20 degrees 43 minutes of Scorpio. And we'll see that they are in a conjunction here with not only Mars at 22 of Scorpio, but also Ceres. Ceres, who's goddess of harvests and grains, at 24 degrees of Scorpio. So Mars is actually at the midpoint of this new moon and Ceres. And this really can bring up issues. Well, it brings up the intensity of our feeling for a start, intensity of emotion that we're going to feel at this time. And by the way, always see where a new moon falls in your chart. 2043 of Scorpio. See where it falls in your chart. Don't forget to set a new intention for what you want to manifest in your life. You're planting a new seed at this time for what you want to grow in your life. But this could raise issues around food supplies, grains, because it's conjunct Ceres. And also at the lunar eclipse, we had the moon conjunct Jupiter in Taurus. Taurus is linked to food. Jupiter can bring inflation around food. So we could have, because of any disruptions in food supply in some parts of the world, we could therefore have inflation around food. So that's one possibility with this. The moon actually comes to exactly conjunct Mars the next day. Oh, sorry, a little later in the day, a few hours later on the 13th. So here we are going to have intense energy around something, deep turbulent feelings. See where it falls in your chart to have a clue around what we're going to be feeling intense about. This could be in a general sense around relationships, because Scorpio is always related to intense emotion. It could be around finances, because still Scorpio is a financial sign. We're going to come to this opposition to Uranus in a moment. In Taurus, again, a financial sign. Again, food supplies, issues around that. Freedom is a big one, because they're opposing that big kind of quadruple conjunction. They're all opposing Uranus. Uranus around food, finance, freedom, all of the F's there. This could also be bringing up some new beginnings in digitization of some kind. We know that I think it was on the 19th of October, in fact, I believe that in the EU it was announced that the rollout of CBDCs was going to happen, I believe. So this could be another stepping stone towards digitization of currencies. I mean, that's a very clear expression of that energy. Remember that going forwards, because of the increased Aquarian energy, that is leading to decentralization, but you have to make your own efforts towards decentralization. It won't be handed to you on a plate, but that is the direction ultimately of travel, of soul growth, let us say. So all of those issues could come up at this time. And again, this is a very sudden, eruptive, sparky energy that we've got at this new moon. We also have a beautiful aspect, actually, which is that Neptune at 25 of Pisces is trine to the new moon and to Mars and to Ceres. And this is really helpful, because it's putting whatever is happening at this time that we're feeling with so much intensity into a bigger spiritual context of What is the purpose and the process of everything we're going through right now? It is rapid evolution. It is a shift to a higher state of being. So that's really important to keep in mind. We also have some important quintiles, 2 of them here. A quintile is very rarely used by astrologers. It was, I think, rediscovered by my wonderful tutor, who's passed now, Noel Till. It's a 165-degree aspect. You can only use a very tight orb of about 2 degrees either side. It's an aspect of obsession or upheaval or upset, again, adding to this intensity that we're going to be feeling at the time. So we have a quindicile between Mars. I don't know if you can see this black line and this little Q, this small Q here, to Jupiter. This will potentially expand the aggressive urge of Mars. So again, be mindful, take a breath, because this could be on the world stage or it could be personal. It's very much about fighting for your belief systems as well. So really, what I want to say with all this intense energy, and I've got another couple to cover, is we don't have to obey the astrology. The astrology is not fated. I've said this so often in my work. It's not fated. You know, the planets are not doing things to us in terms of determinism, that we have no choice. It's almost like a cosmic weather forecast. And let's say the cosmic weather forecast is saying there's going to be one heck of a rainstorm coming. Now, if you didn't know that information, you could just go out in shorts and a t-shirt and get absolutely soaked to the skin. But the information, the weather forecast, is helpful because you can think, okay, I now have a choice. I can choose to go out and do my walk later when the rainstorm is cleared, or I can go out in my rubber my rubber coat and take my brolly with me and be sheltered from the rainstorm. I have a choice. I have information to allow me to make an informed choice. And that's really how I'd encourage you to see the astrology. We're not fated to plunge into this intensity. And yes, there's sparky conflict here. We can take a breath and we can take a choice. And we can step back and say, I choose to use this energy differently, to give me focus to complete a project, to be creative, etc. It takes us to an eagle's perch, let me say, because I keep hammering my eagle's perch, to say, I now have a bigger perspective on this energy. I'm not just plunged into it as I may feel I am if I watch the nightly news. Really important that we start to have that perspective on astrology, I think. Also, there's another quintile here, and this time it is between Mercury. You can see this black line, again, this little Q to Uranus. Again, this is very similar to what I was describing on the 4th of the month with Mercury opposing Uranus. Mercury's now traveled out of Scorpio into Sagittarius. So this could be, because Sagittarius is linked to truth and so is Uranus. So this could be, big truths coming to light. Can again be cyber attacks because of all I've said earlier. It could be disruptions in aviation, travel. Sagittarius is also connected to flight. Uranus is connected to aviation. So we could see again, because it's a challenging aspect, quindicile, something happening in those areas. And we also have Saturn square to Mercury. We have Saturn, 0 of Pisces, square to Mercury at 4 of Sagittarius. So with all of this information bubbling out, potentially, truths coming to light, secrets coming to light, Saturn could be putting or attempting to put a big lid on this communication, on this information, Mercury, quelling, suppressing, censoring truths or strong opinions, or even legal developments, Sagittarius, connected to the law. So we will see how this plays out, but there is certainly, through this first half of the month, attempts to put a lid on on information and communication. And it could be that communication is being cut out because of any potential power cuts. I mean, we're having so many big solar flares at the moment, and they quite regularly take out power grids in various parts of the world. And it isn't such a big deal, but if we have a really, really big solar flare, X-class, whatever, it has the potential to take out more geographies in terms of power grids. And remember, with Uranus in Taurus until really 2026, it doesn't fully move out of Taurus till then, that really represents unstable geomagnetics. And of course, we've seen that really since it moved into Taurus in 2018, we've seen much more unstable geomagnetics. That's one of the key themes of Uranus in Taurus. Again, the unstable geomagnetics are linked to the much higher levels of solar flares, and they are one of the key ingredients for our evolution. So, as I've spoken. So, we also have Mars 22 of Scorpio. It's actually in a quincunx 150-degree aspect to both the North Node at 23 of Aries and Eris at 24 of Aries. So again, these same themes come up around sovereignty, individual rights, freedoms, etc. Just a tip into the middle of the month, because this mid-month period, particularly from the 11th onwards, is going to be so high voltage, let's say, so charged. On the 16th of the month, we have Mars coming exactly to that quincunx with Eris. The Sun is also exactly quincunx to Eris, and Mercury is in a sesqui quadrate to Eris. So Eris being very, very aspected around the 16th of the month. And really remember from, really end of November onwards, when this big T-square that we've had virtually all year between Pluto and the nodal axis, South Node isn't generally shown, but it's up here, this T-square, that is starting to move on. So this has been the big year for choice. And I think virtually everyone has made their choice so far. Am I at the victim end of the nodal axis? Am I at the co-creator end? Am I living in fear? Am I living in love? Because as we move forwards into 2024, that T-square is going to just slowly pull back, dissolve, and we've made our choices for the timelines that we are on. So I'm going to stop sharing here, but I'd just like to share with you the Sabian symbol for this new moon. Remember, with the Sabian symbols, they were channeled in 1925, in fact, by a gifted medium called Elsie Wheeler, with the help of astrologer Mark Edmund Jones. And they are for each degree of the zodiac. And what you have to do is round up the degree you're looking at. So in this case, we're looking at 20 degrees, 43 minutes of Scorpio. So you round it up to 21 degrees of Scorpio. And the Sabian symbol is these are so relevant always. They're quite poetic, but I find them incredibly relevant. So the Sabian symbol for 21 of Scorpio, which is relevant to this new moon, is obeying his conscience. A soldier resists orders. Obeying his conscience, a soldier resists orders, because he won't compromise his values. He's sticking to his integrity and his moral compass. Isn't that interesting? I find that incredibly interesting for this new moon in Scorpio, with all that I've been saying. And I'd really like to close with a fabulous quote, which I love dearly. This is from the author Paul Levy, L-E-V-Y. He's a practicing Tibetan Buddhist and very steeped in quantum physics too. And he really believes that our physical reality is inseparable from our consciousness, as do I. I mean, I believe that very, very deeply in my bones. And his role in life, he sees, is to awaken the collective to change the dream, to awaken, to break out of this dream that we've been in. I'm pretty much with him on that. So the quote is, and I may have to read this twice because it's quite a long quote, but I love it. Quantum physics reveals to us that turning the gaze of our attention towards anything is a powerful creative act that alters, energizes, and potentiates, i.e., brings into potential, whatever our gaze falls upon. Focusing our attention is an act of creation in and of itself. How often have I said focus is food in the quantum realm? So I'm absolutely with Paul Levy on this. Our beam of attention intersects and interacts with the multi-dimensional probability waves that hover in a ghost-like state of unrealized potentiality that comprise matter in its unobserved state. Absolutely love that, because essentially what it's saying, which is what I've been trying to bang on about in so many videos, is through our frequency, we create a kind of energetic architecture in the crystalline plasma, and that with increased focus and attention and energy starts to become more and more kind of solid, and we pull matter out of the quantum soup. We turn it from just nothing into an experience, an event in our lives. Depending on our frequency, that will produce either beautiful symmetrical geometry in the quantum realm, in the plasma, or very distorted, ugly geometry. Think of Emoto Masaru's water crystals and Veda Austin's beautiful, much more advanced work with them. Think of how our thoughts, our emotions are affecting water, which is in every cell of our body, of course, but also how it's affecting the out there plasma, which we're pulling into our reality to make it manifest. So I love this quote so much. I'm going to read it for you again. Paul Levy refers to this as our superhero power. And remember, as we go through this evolutionary period, and many of us are starting to feel this already, we are starting to develop abilities and skills that we have never known in our lifetime. We're probably remembering them from previous lifetimes, but we haven't experienced them in this lifetime, of telepathy, of healing, of this sense of oneness with nature, etc. This is the process we are all going to be awoken to, I think, particularly over the next three years while Saturn is in Pisces until February 2026. Okay, I'm going to read it again. Quantum physics reveals to us that turning the gaze of our attention towards anything is a powerful creative act that alters, energizes, and potentiates whatever our gaze falls upon. Focus is food. Focusing our attention is an act of creation in and of itself. Our beam of attention intersects and interacts with the multidimensional probability waves that hover in a ghost-like state of unrealized potentiality that comprise matter in its unobserved state. Fabulous. This is what we're doing in every moment. We just don't realize it. This is what we've always done in every moment. And, you know, I really want to just stop for a moment on the probability waves. Astrology is the language of mathematical probability. It's not a language of complete determinism. It's a language of probability, mathematical probability, and it gives us the most probable outcomes for, you know, a person, a country, a point in time, but it is not deterministic. It does not say this will absolutely happen, because it's only half the picture, because it needs us as humanity, as single individuals, as collective, to interact with that pattern, that geometry that the astrology gives us to produce an event, an experience in the world. It's half the picture. It's the sheet of music not yet played. It's the potentiality not yet made manifest. We, with our energetic interaction, make it manifest. So that's why I think we increasingly, this is a completely heretical thing for an astrologer to say, For me, I'm increasingly moving beyond the astrology. Yes, absolutely. I'm going to probably be whipped for saying this. We'll see what kind of a reaction I get. But yes, it gives us incredibly helpful information, incredibly powerful, helpful information to guide us on our way. Kuiper belt objects, dwarf planets, absolutely loving them. They are guiding us to a higher consciousness, a higher state of being. But we are the script writers, we're the producers, we're the co-creators of whatever is manifesting in our lives. And I really would love you to start to feel that power in yourselves, that yes, what I give you regularly as updates are cosmic weather forecasts, and only that. Then it's down to you to step into your power, your sovereignty, your radio dial, to live in joy, peace, gratitude, and really start to change the world. Feel quite emotional. God bless. Hope that helped you. Interested in my books, my teaching videos, newsletter, you can find all that on pamgregory.com website. Bye for now. I'll be back very soon.